Okay, we should be live. Okay. And now I got the echo fixed, supposedly. Uh, this is WVU football going deep, and tonight we are also going big and going bold. It's not gold and blue, it's bold and blue. We're bold and gold. Hey, what the heck? After adding the two defensive backs this week, my excitement level increased to the point that I absolutely just had to do a prediction show. I know we are still a ways from spring camp, but baseball season has started, so it must be time to start talking about football. Of course, you can't start talking about football if you never stop talking about football, and that has become me of late. Now, whoever does come on in, you are welcome to make your own predictions. You do not just have to sit here and listen to me. Only requirement is that they be positive predictions. We don't need to be way over the top. No, I don't see any reason to say we're going to win the national championship. I would not object if we win it, but I am not going to predict it. I'm going to predict a few other good things. Do not come in here and start trying to justify the people who put West Virginia 11th in the Big 12. Okay, we have our first guest.
Hey.
And I'm sure everybody recognizes Jorden from Country Roads Webcast, but I'll introduce him anyway. This is Jorden from Country Roads Webcast. How's the night going?
Appreciate the intro. Yeah, going well. I had the day off work, so even a bad day off work's better than a good day there. So that's always good.
That sounds like you may need to be contemplating a career change. I have had more than one job that qualifies as that.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I repaired railroad track, did roofing repair of various types, checked telephone poles for rot.
That's all. That sounds like too much manual labor to me already.
Well, actually, checking the telephone poles for rot was good for me while it lasted. I spent the entire day carrying an all-iron shovel. The handle was an iron pipe because you needed the extra force when digging. My boss would give me a list of pole numbers to dig, and I would start walking out ahead of the other two guys who would be following to do all the finish work. And that was it for the day. I usually wouldn't see them again until the end of the day.
Hey, not too shabby.
But hey, by the end of that, I was in the best condition of my entire life.
Oh, I guarantee it after that.
And, could actually run cross country. So, hey, you got a prediction of your own in mind? You want to start us off?
I came up with a couple. One, I want to do one on offense and one on defense. I tried to go kind of as bold as I could without being too outlandish, I guess. Offensively, I think, I'm looking at Garrett Green. You look at some of his numbers last year, and the only thing that I think could, allow this to not happen would be he's going to be sharing the load with some other really good running backs that are going to score some touchdowns as well. But how about Garrett Green in the 2020 club, 20 passing touchdowns, 20 rushing touchdowns next season? That's pretty bold, right?
I had not even thought about it, but it is a definite possibility. I mean, how many guys do we have who can score from any spot on the field now?
Right.
And Green is definitely among them. Now, I'm not sure he will be running as much this season.
Yeah, that's the
But
only thing that could keep it, I think, is just you're gonna try and probably take a little bit of that load off him and hopefully have a healthier CJ and stuff, so we'll see.
that also, I mean, they'll play it the same way they did this year, that if he sees open field, he goes.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's going to be the thing. We've got so many people that the teams have to cover. He may run less often and still get more touchdowns.
It's true. You never know. You never know. It's possible.
Barring injuries, you're not going to be able to cover everybody on this team.
Too many weapons.
Yeah. And, run, pass, can do whatever. That's which I think we are going to be better on offense at the beginning of this season than we were at the end of 2023. So that's a nice place to pick up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They were clicking on all cylinders already as it was right there at the end of the year.
Yeah, 2020 club. Had not even thought about that.
Yeah, that's something that I was hoping for, because when I was looking at his numbers last year, I didn't realize, how close he was to, I mean, he's, a handful of rushing touchdowns away, but still I was like, man, double digit, rushing touchdowns. And I remember, I don't know how big of a deal it is now, how often it happens, but I know it used to be a big thing when quarterbacks would hit that 2020 club. Cause I remember him talking about it. I want to say Tim Tebow was one of the first to do it, if I remember right, but definitely, it's either way, his year was impressive, but if, you want to improve on that, that's just something to strive for. That's, one of the bolder predictions I could think of for the offensive side, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, what makes Green stand out is not his passing or his running. It is the fact that he is high in both.
Yep.
I can't remember, I was reading somebody in the last day or two saying he's not the best passer, he's not the best runner. But when you look at the ability to do both, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's probably the best dual threat in college football right now.
He has just great instincts, I feel like, too, like you talked about, to know when to tuck it and run. And I think it's almost like a clutch thing as well. I can think of, I don't know how many times last year it seemed like we needed a third down. Everyone's covered. Garrett Green knows exactly where the marker is. He's going to get that yardage. When you need him to make a play, he made plays in clutch situations, especially really good in 2-minute drills as well. So I think that's one reason, he was able to get the touchdowns that he got and rack them up in that manner, is just because his great instincts to know, when to throw it and when the lane's going to be there for him to take off, get the clutch first down we need, or, take it the distance even like he did a few times last year.
Although, I think we always have to remember that instinct is a tricky thing, because you go back a couple of years and the problem was he didn't know when to run or when not to run.
Right.
So the instinct has met training. And when you put those two together, when you have trained instinct and you don't have to think about it, then you've got something. Yeah. But so what about your defensive prediction?
Defensive prediction. This one, I don't know. Maybe it's not as bold, I guess, because it's something that we've seen kind of in recent history, but I guess in a way it would be bold just because of the fact that we know, West Virginia's defense throughout the latter portion of last year was kind of the struggling unit. Particularly, there wasn't a ton of depth on the back end. The secondary was the question mark heading into this offseason. But I think with a lot of the pieces West Virginia's added, both to help the pass rush with some of the, edge guys they've added, but more importantly, of course, the pieces to the secondary that they've added in this transfer portal window. My bold prediction is West Virginia is going to lead the Big 12 in passing defense next season.
I did not specify passing defense. One of my predictions is number one defense in the Big 12 overall. And I think, if they don't lead in passing defense, they should be right up there.
Right.
They may lead in both as well as just as total defense. The more you look at the guys we've added back there, the better it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And we are also talking about more man-to-man coverage, which good chance of more interceptions. And that, I like it.
I do too. The only
Yeah,
thing that gives me, I guess makes me a little leery of it would be, the scheme change. Is it going to take them some time to adjust to it? How different is the scheme going to be compared to, what it has been, I guess. But I think, like you said, just the pieces they've added in that back end, the pieces that they've added to help the pass rush as well, to go with what was already strong there last season, the defensive line being the strongest unit we had probably on the defense last season. You're bringing a lot of the linebackers back that were injured. And that secondary went from, a question mark to, I think, being a strength now in 2024. And, you look back a few years ago, 2020, West Virginia had, the number one pass defense in the country that year. And I think when you look at that roster compared to what West Virginia looks like on paper heading into this year's defense, especially in the secondary, looks more talented and a lot deeper than that defense was. So it's definitely not crazy to think West Virginia could be one of the better defenses in the Big 12, which would be a huge improvement. And obviously this team could be scary dangerous if you pair, the offense that you had last season, which could be even better, with a defense that's, right there on par with it. West Virginia could be, a tough team to beat next season for sure.
yeah, yeah. It kind of drives me nuts when people are going over the schedule and talking about how hard all the other teams are going to be to beat, and they don't talk about how hard West Virginia is going to be to beat.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, those other teams need to be the ones who are worried. I'm not looking at that schedule and seeing anybody that we can't beat.
I agree.
And I'd say Penn State and maybe Utah, depending on how they actually come out, are, anybody else I'd say we should beat.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're certainly going to be underdogs there, but that Penn State game, being in Morgantown, it's certainly going to have the atmosphere that should give you, a bit of advantage there. I'm going to be really excited for that game because, last year West Virginia obviously was just outmatched. This year, I think the teams are going to be more evenly matched and playing at home. Who knows how it could go, but the more I think about it, that game really, if you could find a way to win that one, you could set up for a very special season. I'm not trying to be too hyperbolic here or anything, but it is a bold prediction show, right? So, but that game and its possibilities already, months away, just gets me really excited.
Well, the thing, I mean, in 2023, it was not a runaway game until late. Burks slipped and was still a hand's breadth away from knocking that pass down. So, we get off to the bad start. We had Wilson Lamp was a problem. They ate us up on certain routes. But overall, we were playing pretty much toe to toe most of the time. Did not contain the quarterback. And that was off and on. That was the thing, when the defense contained the quarterback, they did well. When for some reason they were letting them get loose, they did badly. And I expect them to be better at that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, with the scheme, I expect a lot of changes, but that's all going to depend on how things come out after spring. They may decide to, step back to a more traditional, closer to what they were this year when they start with Penn State, if things aren't going well. But I mean, we've got experience, we've got talent.
Yep. And depth.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at this team, I don't know when there has been a team that you would look at and say, there just aren't any weaknesses.
It's hard to find right now because, like I said, a couple months ago, the weakness was certainly going to be the secondary. That was the big question mark, and just everything you've done to add there has really made that, I think, going to be an absolute strength. I was a fan of Montre Miller last year. It looks like he's probably going to hopefully get that waiver and be back this year. Jacoby Spell's coming back, but these transfers that you've added lately, you talked about the ones earlier, Garnes and Crandall, I think they're going to factor in, but Joseph and then Hollis from Northwestern, both of those guys got a great chance to be starters in the secondary, and you're adding that to go with the young guys that you've already added in, earlier in the cycle. So I think West Virginia just has a slew of depth there in the secondary, and I agree, looking at this defensive roster for, this staff since they've been at West Virginia, they haven't had one like this.
Yeah. Everybody has wanted to yell at, the coaches, but they have not had the players to work with, especially once the injuries happened. And this, I don't want to talk about injuries. Every time I did last year, somebody went down, but
Gotta find some wood to knock on somewhere.
I'm not sure. It's like, how many guys would have to get injured before it really, hurt the way it has the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
So I mean, if we can just have an average injury year, I mean, and there's nobody on the defense that I would say we can't afford to lose. Even if Burks went down this year, I think we can hold up.
Yeah, we have enough bodies, and I think, and they're veteran bodies too, especially in the back end with Wilson, Burks, Joseph. That all those guys I think are going to be cross trained to be able to play any one of the safety positions. If anything were to happen, I think we would be all right.
Yeah. Part of me wants the season to start now, and part of me says, okay, we need spring camp to get ready.
Right.
But,
it just can't get here soon enough, in my opinion.
Yeah. But it's still going to be fun, to watch them develop. We're not, of course, we're not going to see all of these experiments in spring camp.
Right.
They're not going to be letting the media in, on a constant basis or anything like that. But I'm trying to bring up one of my predictions, and it's been so long since I've tinkered with some of this. I'm not remembering how to do it.
I know that's how it is. Sometimes it's hard. They change stuff up on here on you, and then you get used to one thing, and then it's somewhere else. You never know.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, there you go.
My first prediction, going back to Garrett Green, I say he combined yards over 4,000 for the season, which is not, it's not huge. It's better than he did last year.
Yeah.
So basically, pretty much everything I'm going with is better than last year. And 4,000 yards, and I think more of it will be passing. I think less of it will, like I said before, the running, I don't think he'll run as often, but he may have more big runs than he did last year.
Right. I could see that.
I don't see him necessarily getting stopped. And I think he's going to have open receivers more often as well. But I think Garrett Green has a big year.
I like it. And, you pair that with mine, 20 rushing touchdowns, 20 passing touchdowns, over 4,000 combined yards. You're talking about a big time season there. What is it? Davey O'Brien Award finalist, probably.
Well, that kind of comes up. Okay, here we go. I say Green finishes in the top 5 for the Heisman.
Now that's bold. I like that.
But I think, he'll be in the conversation right up to the end of the season and, be one of the top guys. He may only be 5, but hey, if you're 5th on the list, that's still a heck of a season.
Oh yeah, that's an incredible year, and it's not too far fetched. It's not too far fetched at all, in my opinion. I think that he's set to have an amazing year. He just had, a year where, not a lot of people that haven't looked at it closely, like I know you and I have, and others have, looked at the numbers that Garrett Green put up, realize how special of a season he just had, and we know that typically at West Virginia, quarterbacks in their second season take a big leap. So I definitely think that a lot of these things that we're talking about here, they may be bold predictions, but they're not that bold. They're really not out of the realm of possibility,
Yeah, and that's the thing. Bold, not fantasy.
Right. Right.
But, and because the thing is, Green I think, 3 or 4 things to fix: not lowering his shoulder, not varying his stride, keeping his feet in rhythm with the read, progressions, and remembering to put touch on the ball.
Not all fastballs all the time.
Yeah, and that's a whole lot less than he had to work on coming into 2023.
Absolutely.
And he knows all of them. The coaches have identified him and been working on it. So if he corrects those things, and he doesn't even have to make major fixes, a little fix, and the short and intermediate passes, we get 4, 5, 6 additional completions per game. He's up 60% completion rate. Drives are continuing. Yeah, it's not that big a step.
No. It's really not.
And I mean, and I don't think either of us is being bold. I think, if we want to be bold, Green could be one of the very best quarterbacks overall in, college football.
Well, when I initially was like trying to come up with something, I was like, well, that's probably a little too bold because I was going to say 3,000-yard rushers, Green, White, Donaldson. That was, but I was like, it might be a little much.
We weren't far off.
I know, but they did have over 700, so it's not impossible.
When you figure White did not get going till late in the season. Donaldson was injured most of the season, and the early season, I mean, running was tough just because everybody was, in the box. And Green, he ran when he needed to. So White, if he puts up numbers the entire season like he did last season when he played, he's way over 1,000.
Oh yeah.
Donaldson doesn't get injured, he's over 1,000. So that, to make your prediction work, it just needs Green to go over 1,000. I think, actually, one of my predictions that'll be coming up here is White over 1,300, Donaldson over 1,000.
Yeah, I could see that. And also you're going to get to, have the opportunity to use them both together, which you didn't get to do a ton of last season. Like you said, both of them were injured at times, and it seemed like they weren't on the field together a ton. And also, you weren't aware. I mean, you knew Jaheim White was going to be great, but it took him a while to emerge, like you talked about. They had to get his practice habits right. They talked about his pass blocking, a lot of things that had to get right for him. So throughout last offseason leading up to the season, they weren't able to scheme it up to where, we're going to use both these guys a lot, some 2-back sets. Now they know what they have heading into this season. So there's going to be a lot of game planning, a lot of things in the playbook designed to have both of these guys on the field at the same time. So yeah, I definitely think that that's one that could happen as well, for sure. Both those guys I think are going to have big seasons.
That's all. Having both of them back there, the one thing that Brown kept mentioning late in the season was they had to get to where they would block for each other.
Yeah.
Now, of course, White, well, neither of them is used to it. Donaldson has only been a running back for 2 years,
Right.
And White has never been in a position where he's had to block for somebody else. So if they get that aspect together, yeah, we could go 2-back sets, and heaven only knows. Yeah, I mean, Chad Scott could do so many things with play designs with those guys if they will block.
Yeah, he's innovative. You never know what he could come up with. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's and I kind of think that's carrying over to the defense, that sort of experimental attitude. I think that's what, I think we will see a lot more odd defenses, so it should be an exciting season in
Absolutely.
a lot of different ways. Now run to read here, 8-1 in the Eastern time zone, 1-2 outside of the Eastern time zone. They play 9 games in the Eastern time zone. I know we've got 7 at home.
Well, there's Central Florida and Cincinnati, but I'm guessing that's the only other Eastern time zone teams, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be 9-3, which I think might be low. With the way the defense has stepped up, I'm still saying 9 is the floor for wins.
I was getting ready to say the same thing. I think 9 might be your minimum. I mean, I'm optimistic always, but that's kind of how I'm going into it currently.
But I think the odds of winning more than 9 have improved.
Agreed.
Before it was like, okay, 9's the floor. I think we had a decent shot at 10. And if everything fell into place, we could win more. Now I think 9's the floor, 10 is likely. I've got a cat passing through here. Had to get the keyboard out of the way before he, maybe shut the whole thing down.
No worries.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really, I'm thinking 10 wins, and then 10 and up. So, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what we've been waiting on, right? Been building towards this, and finally now to be at this point, it's super exciting to get ready to go into this season where you're actually anticipating the year more so than you have in a handful of years. You have the most anticipated season opener you're going to have in decades. It's really just going to be a fun season, to be a WVU football fan overall.
And I am seeing a lot more people saying they are excited.
Me too.
Now, how many of them will keep it up? I don't know.
I was about to say, as long as they don't, turn too quick, we'll be all right.
Yeah, there are still some. Well, this is the make or break season. Brown still has to show us something. Didn't beat any good teams last year. But yeah, I was just on the 24/7 board, and a lot more people saying, hey, yeah, looks good. Hey, of course, I don't know how much they're watching. Mountaineer Paul was saying his views have been down. My views have been down. I don't know. You haven't been, you've been busy and haven't posted a lot. I don't know if you've been tracking your view rate lately.
Well, mine's been down as well. I think a lot of it, especially right now, I think through basketball season, I think that's one thing I've realized. It seems like, if the team's not doing well, the interest isn't as high. So, probably once spring football kicks up and everything, I'd expect, view numbers to get higher and stuff. And it's like you said, I've been busy as well. So like, as far as basketball season's been concerned, I haven't been able to cover it a ton because I haven't been able to give it the justice, I feel like, because I haven't been able to watch a lot of the games. Sometimes it's hard for me to do like a recap or something if I'm only listening to it. But yeah, as far as, view numbers and stuff, they've definitely down right now. But I think, give it a couple months, about once spring football comes around, hopefully they'll kick back up. People will start getting more interested. At least that's what I'm expecting. It definitely always seems to go through waves. I know it was funny, like when I first started on YouTube, I realized I got a lot of viewers in the off season, like reporting on news leading up to the season. And so then I figured, oh man, once the season starts, this is really going to kick into high gear. But for some reason throughout the season, it dwindled off, but then once the offseason came back around and reported on more news, it went back up, the subscriber number. So I don't know. I can't figure out how it works. I put out a video where I'll work, a couple of days on it, and I'm like, this is going to be really good. And no one will watch it. And then you'll put out a video you work 10 minutes on, and everyone watches it. So who knows?
You hit the right subject, and views double.
Yep.
Then you cover an extension of that subject and nobody cares.
Yeah. It's a mystery. It's a mystery.
But yeah, now, I mean, I have not followed basketball much at all. I mean, this show is specifically football.
Right.
But I'm a little worried, not so much by the basketball team as was reading, I guess Huggins has been having players over to his house and such.
He's trying to stay involved. I know that. That's definitely.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, I think his involvement has been largely negative.
Yeah.
And there's no way Eilert had a prayer this season if Huggins is messing with the players.
Yeah, it's not a good situation with that involvement there. And that's one thing I was worried about with it being Eiler, not that I wasn't glad to see it be Eiler or there was really any other move to make at that time, but he has the connections to Huggins, so he's going to be fine with Huggins hanging around and stuff. But it's messy. It's not going to be a good formula, and obviously the team chemistry hasn't been there, and it's kind of evident.
Oh yeah, what worries me most is I don't know if the coaching situation has actually changed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any really top quality coach is going to want to step in unless they can be guaranteed Huggins won't interfere. Yeah. And how do you guarantee that?
I don't think you can really, because he's going to be around. He's going to attend the games, so if it's still some of the same players, some of these guys can come back. They were guys that he recruited. They're going to be in contact with him as well. So I don't know. I don't know what you do there really.
Buy him a fishing cabin with no phone or internet access. It's the only thing I get. But I mean, with the whole Baker and Missouri issue, I don't expect Baker to leave. I think he likes it here. I think he's got a great relationship with Brown. But the only thing that worries me is if he's fed up with the basketball situation. But things at Missouri are worse than they are at West Virginia. So.
Right. I've seen it going around and stuff. I haven't really looked into it too much because at first I was like, I don't think so. But there's been a lot of smoke about it, so maybe there is legs to it a little bit. I'm sure they definitely want him. I don't know, what his level of interest is in going there, but just looking at it from my perspective, the way I was remembering, didn't he just get his family here? Seems like not too long ago, because I know he was here for a while before they got here. So, just looking at it from that aspect, it would seem kind of crazy to me. He just got his family here. I want to say less than a year ago, for him just be like, okay, now we're heading to Missouri. Once they just got here, just got settled. But money talks and things like that. So you never know what could happen. But I feel like he really does like it here at West Virginia, and I think he would want to stay here for a while at least and kind of see what he can do, with his hires. He's already made a great hire for the women's basketball team. I'm sure he wants to do the same for the men's basketball side. So I'm hoping that he doesn't go anywhere because I really like him. And, if I was, had to bet on it, I would say that he's staying here, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I think we're going to see his name mentioned with almost every AD spot that opens up.
Yeah.
He's doing a good job. In multiple ways. He's everything you want from an AD. So, he's going to get mentioned, but that doesn't mean he wants the job.
Correct. Exactly.
So, let's hope. Meanwhile, let's see here. Next prediction, I say we have at least 4 receivers over 500 yards. Now, I'm not naming anybody going big, like over 1,000 yards, because we've got a bunch.
Yeah.
We are not going to be dependent on one receiver. But we only had one over 500 this year, and I think last year only one over 500. I don't know when the last time was we had more than one over 500.
It's been a while, seems like.
But we had several, close to 500. Only I would say, and Carter was, I think, like 501 or something like that. He was the highest. So.
Just barely over.
But I think we are going to see a bunch of guys put up yards. Who has the big game will vary.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to be seeing one guy get 100 yards a game after game, because teams will start covering that guy.
That's one thing I think about this offense, for defenses, it's kind of just going to be pick your poison, because you can't cover everyone. You can't, you want to worry about Jaheim White. Okay, here's CJ Donaldson and Garrett Green. All right, you want to try and shut down the run. Traylon Ray can beat you deep. Hudson Clement can make plays. I mean, you name it, go on down the line. Rodney Gallagher is going to be more involved in the passing attack as well, I'm sure. It's going to be a lot of fun. I feel like we're raving about this offense, but rightfully so. And definitely, I think that it's possible to have 4 receivers go over 500 yards when you look at the guys that we've got coming back and some of the guys that we're bringing in. Definitely, I like it.
Yeah, because Fabianich was talking about Ray was, not strong enough to compete with, college-sized players, and Ray knows it. And Taylor has to get better in getting into and out of routes. And yet, if they do these things, how much better can they be? And even Bray, he said Bray is still raw in a lot of respects. So he's still got room to, come over here and develop.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we could see 5 or 6 receivers over 500 yards each.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, Cole Taylor, he could be knocking on that door as well.
Yeah, well, he was, I think, the second leading receiver last year.
Yeah, it was 36 catches or something like that. I know it was the most the tight ends had in a long time. Yeah, long time.
First time we've had a good receiving tight end in a long time.
Yes.
Although, yeah, with as many people as we have in the tight end room, it's still uncertain who is going to step up, after Taylor or with Taylor. But I think somebody will. Somebody has to out of that group.
I think so. I mean, they've got certainly plenty of options there for sure.
Oh, yeah. And of course, like somebody was saying on my last broadcast that they wanted to see some downfield speed out of the receivers, a real burner. And it's just like, my gosh, we've got Horton, we've got Clement, who's almost as fast as
I was about to say
Horton.
both of those two are pretty fast.
Gallagher, Ray, who gets behind guys. I think we have a minimum of 4 legitimate deep threats on the team now, not counting the incoming freshmen.
Right.
Farmer will probably be.
I was about to say he might be the fastest out of all of them.
And I mean, when he gets here, he will be the most ready of the freshmen.
Well, and then Dominic Collins ran, what was it, a 4.26 or something like that at the camp?
Multiple times and at 2 different camps.
Yeah.
But his knowledge and technique is not there yet. But punt return, kickoff return.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. We could definitely use a return man.
And I don't know how fast CJ Cole is. It's not something we've seen talked about that I can remember. But he's one. I mean, he and Clement were kind of the two who were right on the edge of things last year, and Clement was the one who got the chance and stepped up. So if Cole is actually as good as Clement, good. But we're going to lose receivers after spring.
I believe so as well. It's just a lot of bodies there right now, and somebody's going to be odd man out and realize that after spring practice. But you're going to have that happen because you're 5 or 6 scholarships over currently.
Right now, yeah, I think 5. And they like to give scholarships to walk-ons. How can they do that? I mean, I really think if we lose more guys, so that we're 1 or 2 scholarships under, I'm not sure we will add anybody. Yeah. Any open scholarships may go to walk-ons.
I think so. I mean, that's what I was looking at after the last, transfers that we're, about to bring in, the Northwestern guys, and kind of looking at the roster. And, after spring, like I said, you'll probably have some guys depart, some that want to, and some that may kind of nudge a little bit and say maybe it'd be best if you go somewhere else, because there's always, that possibility as well. But I think looking at the roster, like you said, if that does happen and you don't lose anyone, detrimental that you're kind of not expecting, I think, hang on to those 1 or 2 scholarships if you get under there, because the roster looks pretty solid as it is currently.
Yeah. And if we definitely have walk-ons who deserve it.
Yep. Agreed.
And the walk-on program has been so good. We have more walk-ons than we will ever be able to give scholarships to who deserve it. When was the last time the West Virginia program was in this position? I don't. It may be something like 15 years since we were at the scholarship limit.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of a time, that it's been this much. And, it's not like you just have the numbers because you've, signed a bunch of guys or, gave, like you said, walk-on scholarships like we have in the past. These are all, talented, scholarship players that are on the roster too. So it's definitely something we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know if there's been this much depth since because now my early days of watching West Virginia football, we didn't have the internet. We didn't, we couldn't track the, 2 deep, 3 deep kind of guys. Right. But I don't think we ever had this much depth to have it actually spread throughout the team now that we solidified the defensive backfield.
I agree.
Because 24/7 board people were talking about how many guys were losing after 2024 to graduation, and it's a pretty high number. But they're saying, 2025 will be a rebuilding year, and I don't think so.
I'm hoping, it's hard to judge it nowadays, unfortunately, because you never know who's going to stay and who's going to go. But, I think that they have it in the program in a spot right now that if things go according to plan and, the people that graduate move on and you don't lose a ton to transfer, that you're almost at a spot where you've got guys that you can just, fill right in and replace, because these guys that are, second and third string on the depth chart this year, a lot of them are guys that have been here, 2 and 3 years. You look at Nico sitting, waiting his turn, just like Garrett Green before him sat and waited his turn. And that's really paid off for Garrett and Nico. Him and Garrett are close, and he's also seeing that. So I'm sure he's going to, try and follow in those same footsteps. And there's guys, across, the positions of each side of the football that, you can make that same case for. So I think they've done a good job when they've hit the transfer portal, not only getting guys that are going to help this year, but bringing in guys with multiple years left that have been able to grow through the program as well.
Yeah, I think, because I don't know how many programs are focusing on transfers with multiple years and how many are looking at a win this year mentality. But if you want to win consistently, not just this year, but each year, you have to recruit to a plan. And that's that. I mean, even if you don't like Neil Brown, you have to admit that he plans. Yeah. I mean, that was, you go back to Holgerson, and he did not have a recruiting plan. Rich Rodriguez did not have a recruiting plan. You always had stars and gaps.
Mm-hmm.
You had a big year, and then you had a down year. And, people don't recognize that if Rodriguez had stayed, the year after would have been a down year. But actually, if Rodriguez had stayed, I don't know that we would have got Geno Smith, Tavon Austin, or all these guys that Bill Stewart brought in.
Yeah, that great recruiting class in 08, 09, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Stewart recruited to a plan. He had trouble getting numbers that he needed. But man, yeah, he and Neil Brown are very, very similar in their approach to coaching, because they play straight with the players, they plan, and they execute.
Yeah.
And planning and execution take time. It took longer than expected, but I really think we are seeing the result of that finally.
I think so too. And like you said, he planned, and then also he was able to, change the plan when the way, the game changed, essentially, because, coming here in 2019, he didn't know NIL was going to happen. And of course, COVID as well, but NIL and the transfer portal really changed things when you had those two going hand in hand. And I think you saw, almost in real time, him have to adjust, because when the transfer portal first came and we had those couple down years, the way they were doing it wasn't working. They had to figure out a different way, and they went and did it. They went and got a GM. Fabianich has been great. The way that they've been able to handle, the transfer portal now, they have a system in place, and you can tell that, and that they've, executed that plan like you talked about, that he had initially when he came here, and then had to adjust when things change. So not only did he have a great plan from the start, he was able to kind of adjust on the fly, get it back. Yes, it made us take a couple steps back in, 21 and 22, but look where we are now after a successful 2023. Here we are in 2024 in a better spot than we've been in, what, a decade? I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah, and I think part of the adjustment has been getting guys who want to be here, so they don't transfer.
Absolutely. Getting the right guys.
I think he always intended to do that, but has gotten better at doing it.
Yeah. Well, he had to figure out what fit, he knew what type of culture that he wanted, but also to go along with that, he had to figure out what fits here at West Virginia,
Yeah. And culture doesn't work until you have the right percentage to make it work. If you still have guys, and I guess the wide receiving room was a problem with this up until this year. If you've got guys that just don't fit, it's not, are they good? Are they bad? Are they good people or bad people? Do they fit? And if you have tension in the room, it just keeps everything messed up.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, another prediction, I'd mentioned the one with White and Donaldson. I said team offense will be over 6,500 yards and average over 35 points a game.
Yeah, I think it's doable. I think you could push, maybe even close to 40 points per game. I mean, this offense is going to be somewhere in there, I'd say 35 to 40 point per game range, just judging by the way they played last year, what they'll have coming back, and a lot of those guys being improved. It's definitely that's not too bold. I don't think that's for sure.
Yeah, because they averaged just over 31 in 2023, and that was with a slow start.
Yep.
But of course, always includes games like Duquesne. So
yeah,
I don't know what
true.
I'm going to say. They're going to average 35 points a game, not counting, the cheapie.
Yeah, the FCS opponent. I think is it Albany next year? It's somebody like that.
Yeah,
I think it's Albany.
Yeah, something. I think you're right, but I don't think we will have a really down offensive game.
I don't think so either. That slow start, I don't think it'll happen. You're going to come out firing on all cylinders from game one, and you're going to have to. I mean, obviously with your opponent being Penn State, but I think they will. I think they'll do it though.
And I think Penn State's going to. Well, I don't know if they'll be surprised by the defense because, of course, they've seen, the DBs from Northwestern, so they kind of know what those guys can do. But of course, they're not going to necessarily know what they'll do in this defense because we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's still a toss up to see where everybody's going to fit. Honestly, that's kind of what I'm interested to see. I think I have a general idea, but also, like we talked about earlier, they are doing, a bit of a scheme change potentially. So it's going to be interesting. Spring's going to be, I think, have a lot more eyes on it and a lot more, anticipation than any spring football in recent memory.
Because, Fabianich said Burks is going to move around. Some people, he's going to be playing spear. And it's like, no, he's moving. He may be. And I'm kind of curious if this defense will end up looking more like a Jeff Castile defense, but with more talent. Castile never had enough experienced defensive players to work with. He just had to build with whatever kind of, got left over.
Right.
But, Castile always had, somebody that did move around a lot, and you were never quite sure which direction they were going to go when the ball was snapped. We really haven't quite had that, but Burks could do it. I think we could see him blitzing more. We could see him up in the box a lot. Anywhere from side to side, less often probably playing back than he did.
Mm-hmm.
But We have what, 4 or 5 guys who could play some version of the spear.
Yes.
Of course, we have Bradley at one of the bandits coming on. If the bowl game was an indication of what he is turning into, he's going to be good.
Yeah. Very impressive.
But meanwhile, switching over to defense on the predictions, I say Ty French gets at least 7 sacks.
I like that. That's kind of one of the things that made me, go along with the prediction that I had for the pass defense was, of course, the players in the secondary that we've talked about. But, I talked about the pass rush as well. Last year, the defensive line was good. The linebackers were strong. When Lathan was healthy, you'll have him back. You'll have Trotter. You'll have, Cutter with experience. But, and you just mentioned Bradley, but the addition of Ty French is probably the most under the radar addition that's not being, I think, hyped up enough for West Virginia throughout this offseason. He's got the chance to be really special this upcoming season and really take West Virginia's pass rush to another level, which should take the defense as a whole to another level. And 7 sacks, like you said, bold prediction show. I think that he could definitely do it, though.
And the thing, I had not realized, now have you seen, because there were 3 Fabianich interviews, 2 on 3 guys before the game and 1 in the gun. Have you seen all of those? Or
yeah, I just finally caught the in the gun one, and that was I'd seen the 3 guys ones, and I finally watched the in the gun one the other day. So yeah.
He was talking about French was playing Mike.
Yeah.
Before, and it's not his best position. He did not want to be playing it. So if he was that good when playing out of position, how good is he when he is playing his best spot and has Mike Joseph to put on the weight and muscle and take advantage of speed?
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see what happens with him here now, because if you have that piece there at that level, let's say put him on the edge of the front line. You were talking about moving Burks around on the back end. Lathan, we saw how talented he was. In my opinion, we talked about the pieces all around, the depth and the talent. You also have a guy at each level that you could kind of move and do what you want with. French, you could move him all around. Lathan, he could probably play multiple positions. Burks as well. And you got 3 guys there, 1 on each level. The defense doesn't know where they're going to be. How do you game plan against that? Plus the other players that can hurt you if you try and account for those 3. Yeah, this defense is going to be fun to watch, and Ty French is a big reason why I'm excited for it, and excited for, what the pass defense can be, because not only are the secondary players going to play a part in that, but I think we're going to see a pass rush from West Virginia that's better than we've seen in quite a while.
Yeah, now, the only caveat I have, with defense, will the linebackers improve coverage skills?
Mm-hmm.
Lathan, when Lathan was in, we did better. So, we weren't really talking about coverage skills because it wasn't an issue. But Koba, he was fun. I loved him. Watching him play was great, but his coverage sucked rocks.
Yeah.
Cutter was inexperienced. So either of them might take the wrong gap, and you just didn't. So many of the times when a safety didn't maintain coverage, when the pass was completed, you didn't see a linebacker anywhere in the picture, and they're supposed to be back there in the lanes and a depth so that the quarterback has to throw over or around them, and they weren't there.
True.
So, the safeties were getting screwed. So we don't know with Trotter, although, my understanding is he'll be ready for spring. So if his coverage skills are good, Carrico, again, we don't know. Cutter, I assume, will learn. And Lathan, it's a question of when he's back.
Right.
So if the linebackers are more complete players this time, so that we have, the ability to rush and the ability to cover, then the defense, is just going to be flat out fantastic.
I think so too.
And with Don here, there are a lot of us who think Neil Brown is an excellent coach and will be a great coach. Will he surpass Neyland? That's a question we haven't asked.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah. I hope he stays as long as Neyland did.
That'd be awesome.
I think that'd be a good sign.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, he runs a clean program like Neyland did. And I think that's harder these days than it was even then.
Definitely.
And it certainly wasn't easy before. But I mean, that's one of the things I'm proud of with this program is we do not hear of scandal. So, of course, now we don't know what happened with guys like Dixon and all of that. Maybe some of it we don't hear of because they just keep it quiet. But also, whatever it was Dixon did was not tolerated.
Exactly. I was going to say they're weeding it out at least, so.
And, so, yeah, I mean, and of course, every time, as the season gets better, more teams are going to want Brown. So it is that question of, can West Virginia keep him? Again, culturally, he's a fit, and that matters to him. So that might keep him here. But will it be enough?
Let's hope so.
And now, if you do come up with an additional prediction that you didn't have in mind when we started, feel free to, add it. But again, staying with the defense, TJ Jackson, I say at least 10 tackles for loss.
I like that one as well. That's the two guys on defense that, I kind of wanted to highlight, but couldn't think of, a bold prediction numbers wise that I wanted to throw out there. So just kind of tried to factor in, the pass rush and stuff into my pass defense prediction. But I think that defensively, if you're not talking about players that you added to the secondary, because obviously that was your biggest need, these two were probably, the biggest pickups in the transfer side on the defense. Ty French, we talked about, the pass rushing abilities. You mentioned Fabianich saying he was playing out of position, but still had the great career there at the FCS level. And then TJ Jackson, I just saw PFF put out something on Twitter today where they ranked the top transfer defensive tackles by their defensive grade last season. Yeah. And TJ Jackson was number one of all the transfers. So big pickups for West Virginia on defense there. I could definitely see him racking up TFLs with the grades that I've seen from PFF on him.
Yeah, I mean, if, of course, PFF grades can be accurate or inaccurate.
True.
Doesn't predict necessarily. I mean, you can have a lowish grade and the West Virginia, Beanie Bishop wasn't great when he got here. He was determined. He had talent and he had a work ethic.
Yes.
But then you had, I think they added like 10 pounds of muscle to him. So
that helps.
We've got the nutrition program and of course Mike Joseph.
Mike Joseph's the man.
So which is why some of these guys are coming here because they know it's not just cornerback, but the program can add that muscle as well as technique. And I'm just wondering if Jackson will, win a starting spot.
It's going to be tough with a lot of those guys there on that defensive line that showed what they showed last season. Mulba had a great year. I mean, there's a lot of weapons on that defensive line. It's going to be, rotating them in and out like hockey lineup changes again, I believe.
Oh yeah, I mean, the number one player will probably get about 40 snaps. Number two, 25, 30 snaps. And then you get a third guy who comes in for 10 or 15. That was what they were doing a lot of the time. And, of course, that does mean, that guy who gets 10 snaps a game next year, he's experienced. Guys graduate, but you've got guys coming in with enough snaps to build And I think Jackson, I've said this in a couple of spots, that I think Jackson this year will be better than Durajaye would have been this year, or will be wherever he went. Now, by the time he's a senior, Durajaye might or might not be better. But I think for this year, we are going to be better with Jackson than we would have been with Durajaye.
Yeah, it's a good trade-off for the time being, for sure.
Of course, yeah, 1 year, but hey, we'll take it.
That's right. We'll take it. Hey, next year we can go get, somebody else, hopefully.
Yeah, now, Timothy Green, you say 9 games with 100 yards rushing. Do you mean with a back who goes over 100 yards? Because if you're talking about team total, 100 yards is not much. I would think 9 games we may have over 200 rushing as a team.
I was about to say, if we should be over 100 every game.
Yeah, and I think again, a single back, whether it's Donaldson, White, or Green, over 100 yards. Yeah, we may have a back over 100 yards every game.
It could happen.
Oh yeah, we've got. Well, of course, when you've got guys who can pick up 50, 60, 70 yards on one play, it's not hard to get over 100 yards. But,
right.
I like the idea. Because, it's just going to be that thing of, dang it, I don't want run or pass to dominate. Yeah. I do want to see a balance of them, which we were seeing at the end of last season.
Yeah, they're doing a great job of keeping them guessing. The play designs were even similar. You couldn't really tell half the time, and I think that they'll be able to keep that up this year in this offense. It's just going to be scary and a lot of fun to watch. But, Forrest, I got my wife's dinner calling my name. I guess I'm going to bow out of here. But I do want to say I appreciate you having me on for this bowl prediction show. It's been a lot of fun here, and I've loved tuning into your videos when I'm not on them myself. You do a great job covering WVU football. So, everyone that's in here, do Forrest a favor, hit the like button. That helps a ton on this video. And always, subscribe to WVU Football Going Deep if you don't already, for sure.
Now, before you head out, and I can smell our dinner downstairs as well. So I'm throwing up the final page there with all of the predictions. I said team defense, 12 interceptions and 8 fumble recoveries. Number 1 defense in the Big 12 for the season, 10-plus wins, the conference championship, and Neil Brown wins Big 12 Coach of the Year.
I love it. I can't wait to dive in, to the schedule. We do the season prediction roundtable show in August on the Country Roads Webcast. And I'm certainly thinking right now, looking at it, and I'm thinking a double-digit win right now. My opinion might change by then. Could go up, could go down. But, I don't think it'll be lower than 9. So I certainly think double-digit wins more than a possibility. And if West Virginia has 10 wins, great shot of ending up in there to play for the Big 12 championship game. And if they do make it to the Big 12 title game, how could Neil Brown not be Coach of the Year with the way he's turned it around, being on the hot seat prior to 2023, a year and a half later or so, heading to the Big 12 title game. It's got to be a Coach of the Year in my book, and trusted the climb for a reason, because here we are now, Forrest, ready for a fun season this year.
Yeah. You think we can convince them to move opening day ahead a few months?
I would sure love it if they would, man, because I'd go tomorrow if they say they would move it up that quick.
Although, yeah, I said before, it's spring training and all the ups and downs and talk that goes on leading up to the season is fun.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to all of it. And I'm 65 years old. If I haven't learned to be patient enough to wait for the season to start by now, I'm in serious trouble.
That's always the problem, right? You can't wait for it to get here, but you also love the lead up because you're undefeated. That's, when you're riding high. Once it gets here, sometimes you got to suffer those defeats and ride through the roller coaster of the season, those emotions involved. So, it's always that catch-22. You can't wait for it to get here, but then once it does get here, it moves by too fast. So, I guess try and enjoy the off season while we're here.
Well, hey, at least it lasts longer than Christmas morning did when we were kids.
True.
Okay, well, I think we'll both head for supper, and I've got to
Sounds great.
Get Bob off my lap here before he crushes me. So I'd like to thank everybody for stopping in. Thanks to Jorden for dropping in. And I'm proud of myself because I didn't call you Justin a single time tonight. I have a feeling you hear that a lot.
Yeah, hey, anything with a J, I'll respond to pretty much.
Especially if it's followed by dinner's ready.
That's right.
So, okay, well, you enjoy your dinner. I know what we're having, so I'm definitely going to enjoy it.
You as well.
And I will talk to you later. And thanks to everybody for coming in. I'm going to call it a night here. Well, let me see. I appreciate Don and Philip. We do what we can. Please tell all your friends that we're out here. Tell your enemies as well. We don't care who subscribes.
That's right.
Okay. I'll see you later, Jorden. Enjoy.
Have a good night, man.
Meal, and see you all some other time. Good night.